Thanks, Jim. I appreciate that. Got the slides. There we go. Y'all give me 40 minutes today, and I told Janice earlier that if we were running close on time, I probably could shorten mine down. So we'll just see how long it takes to go through all this. But I will welcome questions from the audience as the time. One thing about it, if you know me or have ever seen a presentation, I do like quotes. And I like to start off with a quote because I think this is very appropriate here with regard to what we're trying to do moving forward with raising the bar with reviewers and the whole peer review program. And that is, this is one from Steve Jobs, which everybody that knows me knows that I'm a Apple aficionado. I love Apple products, but that's not the reason this quote ended up here. It's just the one that I picked for this particular session. When you grow up, you're told that the world is the way it is, and you try to live inside the world. And I think as CPAs right now and peer reviewers, a lot of times that's what we want to say is this is the way it is, and that's just the way it needs to be. Once you discover that the life you're trying to live inside of was made up of people no smarter than you are, that's when you realize that you can change the world. The minute you understand this, life will never again be the same. And I think that applies to us today, where we're here today with regard to this Proc Summit. I think it applies to the whole peer review program. You know, we are smart folks, and we can change the issues that we have got with regard to problem reviewers, peer review in particular, because we've sort of had a little bit of a hit here with this DOL report, and the AICPA has gotten very serious with regard to fixing these issues. And I think this really applies to us because I think that we need to move forward and realize, I agree with Henry, this is educational remedial, but think about when you're raising your kids. Sometimes in order to educate them and remediate them, what do you have to do? You have to punish them. And that is part of what happens here. If someone's not doing as they should in the profession and as a peer reviewer, sometimes they're going to have consequences. And I think we need to think about that because sometimes in order to educate folks, they have to have consequences. And that's not from NASBA and that's not from the AICPA either, as Henry said earlier. That's from Allen. Actually, I think there's been a two-pronged approach to the change with regard to peer reviewer performance. The peer review board realized that the real breakdown in peer reviews is at the peer reviewer level. If we don't have peer reviewers doing the appropriate job, then we're not going to get the appropriate results from peer review, period. I said this many years ago, but I didn't have anything to prove it. We're getting the information now with the enhanced oversight and the other things that has proven that these are the things that need to happen. A task force was formed a couple years ago. It was right after about the time I came back onto the board, and it was the Peer Review Performance Task Force. And our job was to look at some of these changes that I'm going to show here. And actually the Education and Communication Task Force was very involved because the two-pronged approach here has been education of the reviewers, changing that education component, and Jim talked about that a little bit this morning, and then tighter requirements with regard to must-select engagements and actually to reviewer performance. Peer reviewers, because of the educational remedial aspect, I think a lot of times sometimes they want to put the onus on the RAB. We recently had one go through a RAB that I'm the tech reviewer for Kentucky and West Virginia. We had a review go through. It had been oversighted. The oversight reviewer felt like that the report was not the correct report. They felt like it should be a pass with deficiencies report. He and the reviewer had a disagreement on that, and the reviewer's response was in an email, if the RAB wants to change it, I'll just change it. And I think we've got a lot of reviewers that do that. If they don't really want to be that, they know that should be a PWD report, or they know it should be a failed report, they'll send it to the RAB with other than that, saying that way they can go back to the firm and say, well, the RAB made me do it. And the onus is not on the peer reviewers. Some of the changes we've got coming up here are with regard to those type of issues that have been going on. I'm going to go off script here just a little bit from my slides because I want to talk a little bit about the education because I didn't have slides in there with regard to that. Jim talked about that this morning. I want to reiterate that, but now we're going to have an annual education requirement. And as Jim said, they're going to have to meet that requirement by May 1st of 2016. I'll get it right here in a minute. It's late in the day, and I know I'm the guy that's standing here between you guys and leaving, so. But everyone's going to have that, or you're not going to be able to get approved for reviews after May 1 of 2016. Now, that's going to be, you're going to have to take the web-based courses, or you're going to need to attend the peer review conference in August of this year in New Orleans. So everyone in this room or anybody that's a peer reviewer needs to be thinking about that. And actually, the administering entities and other folks, probably we need to do some more education with regard to that and some more communication to make sure that everybody understands this. Another thing is on the must selects. There's increased education that's going to be required for must selects. That was another thing that came out of this, because we're seeing the must selects with regard to enhanced oversight, and we're having some issues in must selects, and it's a peer reviewer issue. If the peer reviewer doesn't do their job, then the firm doesn't have a chance of being educated or remediated, either one. Because if the peer reviewer is telling you they're doing okay, then guess what? The firm thinks they're doing okay. They have no reason not to believe that. I passed peer review. The reviewer had no issues with regard to that. What the enhanced oversight showed was that we had some peer reviewers that either weren't doing their job appropriately, or maybe they didn't know what they didn't know either with regard to must selects. They stretched, as Jim said this morning, they stretched their boundaries a little bit further than they should have. But actually, Janice, I'm going to tell on Janice, because Janice told on herself on this one. I don't know if she's in the room right now, but I'm going to tell on her anyway. She said she took on one on a peer review and oversight, and she said, I really shouldn't have done that. And she said, I don't know how much time I had on that peer review that I couldn't bill for in order to get ready for that. Now, that's what a team captain or a team member should do if they're in over their head. But realistically, she said, what I've learned is I took that off my resume, and I don't have it on there anymore. And that's what's going to happen, and we're going to see more team members being added to review teams because of this, in order to get the expertise that's needed. Part of this that came out from the reviewer performance issues is we've come out with a new feedback form. I know, Jerry, you've probably seen the form, and I know there's other AEs here that I may not know as well as I do. Jerry's actually served on a couple committees with Jerry. But now we've broken the form down into two different categories. We've got a significant reviewer performance category. It's got two items in it. Those two items are failure to identify non-conforming engagements. That's being considered a significant deficiency on that form. Or failure to properly conclude on a peer review report rating by 2 or more levels. Now, what that could be is, I issue a pass report, and the RAB comes up and says it should have been a pass with deficiency. Because I issued a pass report, I had no FFCs. I need to put that in there. I had no FFCs. So you're 2 levels off when you go to a pass with deficiency, because you did not raise and elevate the MFCs to an FFC, which is 1 level. And then when you go to should have been a pass with deficiency, then it becomes 2 levels. So that would be a significant deficiency. What's that going to do to the reviewers? If you have 2 or more significant deficiencies identified, the administering entity's peer review committee is expected to require remedial action or recommend reviewer for removal from the list of qualified peer reviewers if you get 2 of these. Now, there's still some wraparound guidance that's out there, and that is going to be on case-by-case basis. Because if you got a reviewer that's done, that says averages 30 to 40 reviews a year, and they did happen to stumble twice, the committee does have it's presumptively mandatory, but there could be reasons why it's not going to happen. But what if you got that reviewer that only does 3 reviews a year? And Jerry, what would you think in that situation? And they got 2 of those 3 that are bad to this level.
We want to
accelerate this action and get these reviewers, because the worst thing we've got is we got a bad peer reviewer. We're not doing the program any good at all. It says eliminate issuance of the reviewer performance monitoring letter. You're not going to monitor them. You're going to give them deficiency letters. We got 2 deficiency letters in there. Now, this came right straight out of the reviewer focus, I think, in the last reviewer focus that came out. Every bit of this stuff that I used for my slides came straight out of the reviewer focus. Anybody have any questions with regard to the non-conforming engagements? Yes, ma'am. It should be out now. I don't know if it's gotten there yet. I haven't. I'm just now really started doing tech reviews for this year, and the old ones that I had just got finished up. I have seen it, but I have not. I can't tell you that it's out. Paul, have you seen it? The new reviewer feedback form that shows the significant. No, it won't be out. I'm sorry. It won't be out until May 1 of next year, because it's not effective till May 1 of next year. I'm sorry. Yes, Paul.
It's in the board agenda, it's in the peer review board agenda for their May meeting.
Okay. I know I've seen the form. Anybody got questions as I go through this? Let's go on and get them out now. So, because like I said, I got plenty of time. Yes, Julie. Wait till she gets you the mic here.
I was just going to say, why so long until the new feedback form? Because
Because it doesn't go into effect till May 1 of 2016.
Rats.
Yes, Sue.
Alan, the guidance for the reviewer performance is effective really December 31, 15, so the
Okay, I'm
feedback
sorry.
form will be out January 1.
Okay.
It's already ready. We just didn't want to put it out because it follows the new guidance, so it didn't make sense to issue it sooner.
Thank you, Sue, for the clarification on the dates on that. Other things that we've got here in this new reviewer performance area is disagreements between the firm or the reviewer and the administering entity. They're going to be settled by a disagreement panel of the administering entity's peer review committee. Now, a big change with regard to that is the peer review committee has got to make a recommendation on this. They can't just say, well, we're just going to punt it to the peer review board. And that is a pretty big change, because a lot of times the committee was just punting them straight to the board. The board is going to act in a capacity of either agreeing or disagreeing with what the committee came up with if it gets kicked on up to the peer review board. And that's the next piece. It says it's going to be appealed to the National Ad Hoc Committee to determine if the disagreement will be heard by the National Review Board. So it may be situations, and here again, we're working through some of the guidance on this, and we haven't had any of these yet. This is just what's out here, and it's going to be a big change for peer review committees. And actually, procs need to be very much aware of these changes, because it's going to have an effect as to whether the programs are being administered appropriately. Here again, we've got other appeals process. That's appeals of the reviewer remedial actions are required by the administering entity's peer review committee. In other words, suspensions, corrective actions, or requests for the removal from the list of qualified reviewers may be appealed to the National Ad Hoc Committee again, but the committee itself has got to come up with a determination with regard to that. That's going to be the big piece. The committee is putting the onus back down at the committee level, that they've got to come up with a solution first before it can go to the board. Some of the reviewer qualification, some of this is not changes, but reviewers must have spent 5 years in public accounting, in the accounting and auditing functions. Here's the big one. And this has really always been there, but it's not been as clear as it is now. Reviewers should carefully consider whether their day-to-day involvement in accounting and auditing is sufficiently comprehensive to enable them to perform a peer review. If you're not thinking that, and this even drops down to engagement reviewers, because, and Sue, you can help me with this, maybe you or Jim. I know as we go forward, there's going to be some PRISM changes, as far as I know, to where, like on engagement reviews, they're going to have to show where that firm does only comps without or comps with or reviews. we're actually going to break it down to those levels, because really if you've got a reviewer that's doing engagement reviews and all their firm does is comp without disclosures, they really shouldn't be reviewing full disclosure compilations or review engagements. So, you know, the reviewer, the onus is on the reviewer that if that's all they're doing, they should not be accepting those reviews. Now, we do not have the mechanism in place, it's my understanding at this time, because PRISM's got to be fixed to do this, and we'll be getting some additional resume information, but it even drops down all the way down to engagement reviews. So if you're an administrating entity out here, you know, we need to be watching those kind of things also, because I think we've probably had some problems in engagement reviews, that we've had folks looking at review engagements that we're only doing comps without disclosures. I actually had that happen in one of my states here recently, and it slipped through, but we're going to oversight those reviews now to make sure that we've got the appropriate solution or appropriate peer review before it goes to committee. Any questions on that reviewer qualifications, on that part of it? We've got additional requirements for reviews of must-select engagements. We've already heard about this a little bit today. There we go. As Jim said, you must have resume experience code A. What that means is you currently must be performing in your own firm these type of industry, must-select industries. In other words, it can't be the OB classification is up to 5 years. Well, I can promise you, we've had enough changes in A133 and Yellow Book in the last 2 years, much less 5 years, to make that change. We got the SOC 1 reports, those have changed. You know, we've got changes in employee benefit plans. So it's gone to now you must be currently involved with that. A lot of reviewers had O experience, which was other. They were performing functions for other firms, maybe they're EQCRs or other quality control functions for other firms. That will not count now and must select engagements. Now, this is all effective for May 1 of 2016. Is this a January 1 or May 1, Sue? I think this is a May 1. Okay. Okay. These dates, the May 1 and January 1, I get a little mixed up sometimes with what I've got here. Also, the reviewer must be a member, they must be a member of the Employee Benefit Audit Quality Center or Governmental Audit Quality Center if they've got those must-selects on the resume. That's the only 2 audit quality centers we have at this point in time for must-selects, but they have to be members of those audit quality centers in order to be reviewing those must-select engagements. Now, there's been talk, I think, at the Institute, Jim, that there may be other audit quality centers going forward, but right now that's not in play. You're getting some of this stuff is, well, how do you back this up? There we go. Enhanced oversight of the peer reviewers. This is another change that's been made. Okay, the last one is effective for the audit qualities. Okay, that's effective January 1 of 16. With enhanced oversight, you've heard a lot about that in the last little bit since we've been here today. You know, next year they're going to be looking at a lot more. I think the minimum number is what Jim told us is 150. And I think it depends on what they see, or if they feel like they need to expand that, they will. I know there's been letters sent out to the major firm groups asking for additional folks to help with this. So if your firm has gotten one of those, you know, and you got someone that qualifies as one of these folks to do these must-select engagements, I'll tell you to get a hold of Carl Rubin. Carl's sitting up here at the front because he's the one that's spearheading that portion of the enhanced oversight. But this enhanced oversight, what it did, it didn't prove, I don't think, what we were hoping it would prove, which was that we really had an 8 to 10% truly failure rate on must-select engagements. All it did was verify what DOL had told us, which was a much higher number. I don't remember exact numbers. I think it was around 40% or somewhere in that neighborhood. So the enhanced oversight, now what's happening with enhanced oversight that I'm telling you is going to happen to reviewers here is if you got those enhanced oversights and those reviewers did not perform appropriately, the RABs should be issuing deficiency letters, and depending on how egregious it was, it could even go further than that, but they should very least should be getting a deficiency letter if they did not perform these must-select engagements in accordance with standards.
Not currently. Not currently.
I said they should.
Well, under the new guidance, yes.
Huh?
That's to be effective in January.
Well, I think even under the old guidance, they should.
Well, it could be minor.
Yep. So, that's my opinion, Paul. Here again, and this goes back to peer review, and this is part of the problem, is we probably haven't challenged the status quo. I forget how many years peer review's been in effect. Mandatory peer review, I think, since 1988, which is 27 years. Challenging the status quo is difficult, but if you think you will be successful running your business in the next 10 years the way you did the last 10, you're probably out of your mind. To succeed, we have to disturb the president. I think that's what's going on in the peer review process right now. It's going on in our profession. It's not just peer review, it's the whole profession. Our whole processes are being disturbed. We're getting more regulatory from the GAO, DOL, Fiducia, everyone is coming out with more, so we're getting disturbed, so we can't continue on the way we were. I mean, the public's looking different. Peer review has changed. When peer review came out, it was strictly education remedial. The regulators were not, NASBA was not involved with that. DOL, Yellow Book, any of those folks, GAO, none of those folks were involved with the peer review process. Now, what is it? I think there's 2 states that doesn't have peer review required for licensure. I think I heard in the CAC meeting yesterday. So, NASBA is very much involved with that. So that has changed and disrupted this process, and we've got to look at it, and we've got to make changes that meet the current environment and not the environment that we had in 1988. And that's part of the reason that we've got these changes coming down the pike. And we've needed to do something, but for the very reason we can't, what worked 27 years ago is not going to work probably today. Now, does that mean everything goes out the door? No, it doesn't. It just means we've got to evolve and change with the times, as with anything else. I know I finished up a little bit early, way early here probably. Jim, do you have anything else that you want to comment on with regard to the changes we've made with reviewers? Anyone's got any questions? We've got some time, or we can move forward and continue on with the stump the chumps. Jim? Thank you.